Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
Another chance for Virginia Tech to win at home, this time against a familiar foe. What's new with ODU? Let's talk about it on episode 436 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. We're recording on Thursday, September 11th, 2025 from the Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Riley Klaus. To my left is lead analyst and columnist Chris Coleman. Across the way is our founder and general manager, Will Stewart. And to my right is senior staff writer Andy Bitter. Producing the show behind the scenes, as always, is Mr. Nick Brown. Well, as today we're going to talk about the upcoming matchup between Virginia Tech and Old Dominion. Andy, you were at the press conferences. Were there any big takeaways from what Brent Pry had to say this week after the Vanderbilt loss?
Yeah, the O-line is not in great shape right now. We talked to Pry last night. He said 7 of the 10 guys in the 2 deep are currently getting treatment in some form or fashion. That doesn't mean they're not practicing, but probably not practicing full speed right now. They're trying to get over something.
Didn't he say twice a day, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's twice a day getting stuff.
Which
but
sounds
I don't know
even
if that's
worse.
every
Well,
single.
that's normal, actually.
I don't know if that's every single guy that's in the same situation. Obviously, different severity, but that was a problem last week when Johnny Garrett goes down, Montavious Cunningham goes down, and it felt like the whole operation sort of collapsed on the offensive line. So this was not a deep group to begin with, and by the end of last week's game, they were missing 4 of their top 7 guys. That's a problem. You saw what happened after the break, just couldn't get any kind of semblance of an offense going. So that they need to get healthy quickly. Additionally, they need to come up with some schematic ways to sort of mitigate the problems that they have on the offensive line. I don't think they did a good job of that in the second half against Vanderbilt, but sort of understanding where they are going into the week, I think perhaps gives them a better chance to plan around ways that they can, change the offense if they need to, and if that group is not, 100% healthy.
So the offensive line going to be a big story for the upcoming game, which let's start talking about. The game itself is going to take place on Saturday, September 13th at 7 p.m. in Lane Stadium in Blacksburg. Right now, Virginia Tech is about a touchdown favorite going into this game as they take on Old Dominion, who is 1-1 after opening with a loss to Indiana. They rebounded with a win against North Carolina Central last week. And Old Dominion and Virginia Tech have played over these last few seasons, specifically in the Brent Pry era. Ricky Ronnie's back for another year, and so they're going to clash again.
Yeah, they are. And everybody remembers the 2 losses at Old Dominion. But Virginia Tech hasn't had any trouble with Old Dominion at home. 38-0, I think, in the first meeting, and then, pretty easy double-digit wins the last couple of times. Even if they didn't look great doing it, they've been able to win with relative ease. But it's kind of hard to imagine the Virginia Tech of the second half of last week's game doing anything with relative ease this year.
That's true. And this has been a problem matchup for the Hokies. Think of all the trouble that ODU has given them. Usually down in Norfolk, don't get me wrong, not typically in Blacksburg, but the 2018 loss that was just an epic disaster and sort of a canary in the coal mine for the whole Justin Fuente era. Brent Pry starting his tenure off on the wrong foot. I know they have turned it around since then, and they've since gone down there and won a game, but man, Virginia Tech is a wounded animal right now, and ODU scrappy so far this year. Played okay against Indiana. I think you look at the total yardage in that game, and maybe the score isn't indicative of what the actual game was. But this is a team that played in a lot of close games last year and didn't come out on top. And sometimes those results tend to reverse themselves the next year. So I'm interested to see what kind of game ODU is going to give the Hokies, if they can give a little bit more of a game than they have in the past coming into Lane.
So, Andy, you talked about that game that Justin Fuente had where they gave up something like 35 points in the second half, I think, and how that kind of served as a harbinger of things to come. And you can say that Brent Pry's very first game when they lost at ODU was kind of an indicator of how things were going to go. 15 penalties in that game. Not a lot of turnovers. I think Tech only had 2 turnovers, but one of them, of course, was a disaster. The bad snap on the field.
No, Wells threw 4 picks. No, 2 of them were his fault. One of them,
one at the end was like off Holston's hands.
Remember they're throwing to
when he dumped it
Jalen
down.
Holston on 3rd down, and Jalen Holston's not the running back you want in a game in a passing situation, right? He just wasn't that type of running back.
This is not the running back you want.
And then they forgot the clock rules late in the game. I think Teal brought that up when he was on yesterday, the coaching staff.
Sounds familiar,
So, yeah, that game, looking back, bad personnel decisions, penalties,
Special teams mistake,
coaches not remembering certain rules. That game was pretty much what happened the rest of the entire
You see
team.
that happen and you go, first game.
Sure.
First game jitters, first game's a head coach. You're going to have to iron out some kinks. That obviously wasn't a talented roster. So I think the hope was that you go, okay, you're going to get better over time with this. But now here we are, 3 years later, and still a lot of the same stuff is happening. You're going, ugh, that's you haven't seen a ton of improvement. I mean, some improvement. They're not snapping the ball over the holder's head on all field goals. That operation looks pretty sharp, actually. John Love feels pretty automatic on field goals, but a lot of the other stuff is still popping up week to week.
And don't forget getting stuck in the elevator. And didn't we decide later that's because Tyler Bowen was such a large human being?
Oh yeah,
that
I mean, I've got a buddy who worked games at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, they just put way too many people on the elevator."
I think Tyler Bowen. They might have ignored the weight limit on that, but in the pregame that was a problem
Was it
because
really?
my buddy Nathan Waters covering the game was stuck in the elevator with somebody else for a long time. So that elevator was struggling before it got to
everybody makes fun of ODU and calls them small time for that, but our personal trainer used to play for Tech, Mitch,
Right.
and he told us that there's an elevator in the Jamerson Center that would get stuck all the time with people on it. He said he got stuck on it. So,
and lastly, don't forget the locker room. Was
Oh,
the
yeah,
locker
the
room
locker room
broken
theft.
into, or was stuff just
Burglarized.
stolen from it?
it was Norrell Pollard. Well, he was, at least Norrell Pollard, probably more.
I think quite a few guys had stuff stolen from there.
I remember Dax had something
What was
stolen.
the follow up? Did they end up catching the person?
They might have.
They wanted to go beat him up because they tracked the iPad.
Oh, that would have made the day even better if that would have happened. Anyway, bad stuff happens going down there.
Yeah.
Typically, less bad stuff happens when the Monarchs are coming here. But like I said, this is not a program that's operating with full efficiency right now. Clearly, jobs are at stake right now. Every result, jobs are going to be at stake. So, Virginia Tech needs to come out and it needs to play its best in this game.
Yeah, if last week's game was a must-win game, what does that make this one? Honestly, it doesn't make it anything because I think we probably know how this will end. But at the same time, you want to win the game. It's an in-state school. You have pride. It's about pride at this point.
Well, when you see these coaches that do get ousted early in the season, Scott Frost, it's like you start 0-3 or 0-4, or there's some just terrible loss, and it just is emblematic of everything that's been wrong with the program over time. And Virginia Tech's in a spot right now that if they go out there and they have a stinker in this one and all the same problems pop up and they go 0-3, and I looked this up, first time being 0-3 possibly since Frank Beamer's first year, 1987. Program was not in great shape at that point. Frank did not take over with the sanctions and everything that was going on, not a program that was humming along at that point. So
even in 92.
Even 92 did not.
Okay.
But yeah, this could go south real quick. I mean, this is Jeff Collins, I think, was 1-3, had bad losses to Ole Miss and UCF in back-to-back games. I mean, how ironic would it be if started and finished with ODU with bad results against ODU? So if I'm Brent Pry, do not lose this game. Do not lose this game. Do not give anybody an excuse to go out and do something, rash about your job security. You need to win this. You need to win Wofford. You need to get to the ACC schedule and go NC State, Wake Forest, I think, to start.
Correct.
Is that the order? I mean, Wake Forest, of all the ACC games out there outside of Stanford, which is not on the schedule for the Hokies, that's the one you'd circle and you go, that should be a win, especially at home. At NC State, I know that offense looked great last week. Defense did not look good at all against UVA. UVA actually should have won that game. hit the upright on a field goal, didn't get a fourth down deep in NC State territory, threw the pick at the very end where they were just slicing through him at the very end, and the quarterback has a throw that he wants back very badly to end that game. I think NC State is a game that could be there for the taking, possibly. On the slate of ACC games that you would choose, I think NC State and Wake Forest are how you want to open the schedule. So get through this one, get a win, get the FCS win, maybe get off to a good start in ACC play. Then you give yourself a chance. But if you lose a couple of these games, and certainly this week, I think you're in deep trouble at that point.
Yeah. So another important one for Virginia Tech. And now as we start breaking down Old Dominion itself, you talk about operations, running the operation for the Monarchs this season. Quarterback Colton Joseph, he really does it all for them in the air and on the ground right now.
Yeah, he averaged over 10 yards a carry against Indiana in that first game. Actually, a lot more than that. I think it was more like 17 yards a carry.
2 70-yard touchdown runs will do that.
75 and 78.
Yeah,
That'll
we'll
boost
do that for your
yeah,
stats.
Yeah. So basically, ODU put up about a little over 300 yards of total offense in that game, and 2 plays came with Colton Joseph. First play of the game, he ran 75 yards.
And wasn't the score of that game 27-14? So that was it for the score?
Yeah, that was it. So they couldn't move the ball against Indiana other than those 2 plays. He is a good quarterback. He got his first action against Tech last year, went 1 of 2 passing, had like 3 carries for a yard. They got better as they started playing him more. They started playing him a lot more the next week, and he eventually took over full time. And he put up really good numbers for a freshman, about 60%, I think. I think he had 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, over 600 rushing yards, and 5 or 6 yards per carry. He is a very, very good runner. He's as good a running quarterback as Tech will face this year, and I know that probably scares a lot of Virginia Tech fans. We don't know what kind of progress he's made in the passing game. The only time we've seen him in action against a Power 4 opponent was 2 weeks ago against Indiana, and I think he was 11 of 22 for 90 yards and 3 picks. But he's been very good against lower level programs. Now, Virginia Tech certainly is not Indiana right now. That's no question about that. But they'll also throw better talent at him than the Sun Belt does. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs on Saturday. Can't let him be balanced. If he's balanced running and passing, then I think Virginia Tech will lose. That they have to stop one of those.
Yeah, 11 rushing touchdowns last for him. He had 10 carries for 179 against Indiana. The 2 long rushing touchdowns, but then some yards on top of that as well. I'm curious what type of rushing quarterback he's going to be. Is he going to be like Diego Pavia was a rushing quarterback last week, and in certainly a certain kind of offense where they did a lot of triple option stuff, really confusing Virginia Tech. Lenora Sellers was a rushing quarterback of a different kind in the opener, and they did a decent job of containing him. So how well can Virginia Tech contain this thing? It seems like it's an offense that's designed that, they're going to kind of spread you out, and then, if they pop a run, it can go the distance. And they had one that went the distance last year against Virginia Tech. It was at Hennicle? Hennicle, I think it was. However you say his name.
He's still on the roster.
He had a long touchdown run against them that, actually made that game like a little bit close for a while.
Quinn Hennicle.
Before Virginia Tech
who was a freshman,
away.
by the way.
Yeah, they were.
Then they redshirted him.
Well, their quarterback was injured to start the season. It's like, who's going to start? Who's going to play? So they were sort of in bad shape with who they're going to start. This year, they know exactly who's starting a quarterback. I think they found a guy last year, 22 total touchdowns, 5 turnover, 5 interceptions. Those are pretty good numbers, for a quarterback there. So will be interesting to watch. I think, another rushing threat. I think they're going to get to a quarterback that's finally a pocket passer, be like, thank God we don't have a rushing quarterback.
Well, I don't know about that. Opposing passing quarterback rating this year, Virginia Tech is 135 out of 136 in the country. So I don't know if I want to see a pocket passer either.
So who's number 136? Do you remember looking and seeing that?
Probably Stanford.
UAB or something.
It's always Stanford.
It might have been
Stanford.
I don't know. I think they do a good job of understanding their personnel at ODU. They've got a really good tackle in Zach Barlev. The rest of their offensive line really graded out poorly last year. So they run their quarterback a lot to account for, the offensive line not being particularly good. It takes away like a free hitter if you run the quarterback more, whether that's option or whether it's designed run. So They kind of have to do that with the state of their offensive line. I don't expect like a high scoring game or anything like that, but I think ODU, they're not good, but they're like a well-oiled machine from the standpoint of they know what they have to do, they know what their personnel is, and they know how to play to it.
Yeah, so you guys kind of talked about, but with Virginia Tech playing North Sellers and Diego Pavia, how much can that defense take from those games, or do you practically have to rebuild taking on a different mobile quarterback?
I think it's more about ODU's not going to throw anything at you that like you've never seen. It's not like they've got some kind of a unique special scheme for their quarterback. I mean, they run some design runs, they run some option plays, but it's nothing that any normal defensive coordinator hasn't seen before. So go out there and play your assignments and do your job. It's a simple game from that standpoint. I mean, you're not gonna see some exotic Paul Johnson looks this week. It's a normal offense.
And so when we talk about the surrounding cast behind him, you mentioned as well, Joseph leads the team in rushing attempts, but they do have a balance of running backs behind him, and also the receivers are going to need to help him out this week if they want to get the offense going.
Yeah, their starting running back is a redshirt freshman. He's not their leading rusher. Their leading rusher popped off a 93-yarder against NC Central last week, but he's only got 5. He's only got 5 carries on the season. So many guys on their roster are unknowns. Like their most experienced receiver has only played 211 career snaps, and only 2 of their receivers have played over 100 career snaps. And then their starting running back is a redshirt freshman. It's hard to get a scouting report on these guys because they just haven't played yet.
Yeah, and when you talk about getting a scouting report, Colton Joseph is somebody who briefly was against Virginia Tech last year, but not really the same guy. How beneficial is it for ODU to have him, like you mentioned, having him down the stretch last year, but he gets the keys to the car right away this year?
I mean, he drives everything for them. If he wasn't there, I think they'd really struggle. He's a very, very good player. I don't think he'll spend his entire career at Old Dominion. I think people will come after him after they get a full season of film this year. And I think you can be dangerous if you put him on a team with weapons, which I don't think ODU really has that around him.
Yeah, how important is it going to be to get pressure against him and see a better performance from the Virginia Tech defensive line this week?
Yeah, I think that's key. You didn't see that a ton last year. Also, Vanderbilt didn't get into a ton of like have to throw situations. So that's, be better on the first couple downs, and then you can go after the quarterback when it's 3rd and long. Last year, was this one of the games that APR had 4 sacks? I think it was.
It might have been, yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Smith on the sideline there.
That's right.
Always seemed to motivate him to do better in those games. I mean, this isn't a fearsome passing offense. So I think you got to slow down the run. You got to get them behind the sticks, and then I think the offense is in trouble at that point. And that's when you can go after them. And that's when Tech looked pretty good against South Carolina. That's when they could dial up some pressures. They got after the quarterback, made some plays. Just never feel like they got Pavia in those situations last week. And, the one time they did get pressure on him where he was rolling out and he chucked the ball deep, they got a pick on it. So, good things happen when you get them in those situations. And I think there's, capability there on Virginia Tech's side. They just need to be in the right situations to go do it.
This offensive line is nowhere near as good as Vanderbilt's. Like I said, they've got a good left tackle in Barlev, but everything else up front, they've got experience,
right.
but you go through their grades and everything like that, and they just haven't played particularly well from an individual standpoint. I think they're a little bit better as a unit than they are individual. And like I said, I think the types of plays that they call help them. When they got a running quarterback that can get you in short yardage situation, that helps an offensive line. Just like last week, Andy, it's same game plan, not necessarily the same schematic game plan, but the same overall general philosophy is get them in long yardage situations.
We're going to be talking the defense and more here as we continue on the Tech Sideline podcast. But going into Saturday, we want to hear some intriguing numbers to this upcoming contest. So, Will, you have some great stats for us.
Stat time with Scott Glesner. First of all, a little house cleaning. Chris, you double clutched at the mention of the 1992 season. Tech actually started out 2-1 that year.
Oh, wow.
So,
and then went 0-8 and
0-8-1 the rest of the way.
Losing every close game possible the rest of the way.
Yeah, I just scrolled through it. It was not pleasant. Let's see. And what was the other thing? Andy, yes, that APR did have 4 sacks last year against ODU. That was one of his 4-sack games. So we segue into Stat Time with Scott Glesner, which is presented by Rich Webb, and here's a word from them.
This episode of the Tech Sideline podcast is brought to you by Rich Web, your local provider of top-tier IT managed services. For 30 years, Rich Web has offered a comprehensive suite of cutting-edge solutions tailored to empower businesses of all sizes in today's digital age. From top-tier network engineering services, ensuring seamless connectivity and security, to our exceptional managed endpoint and cloud services, providing proactive maintenance and strategic optimization, we're dedicated to delivering excellence at every turn. Rich Web, driving enterprise IT. Visit richweb.com to learn more. Rich Web has proudly hosted TechSideline.com for over 2 decades.
All right, we appreciate Rich Web for sponsoring Tech Sideline, and let's get into it. Scott writes, on the previous stats, I mentioned that Virginia Tech has only scored 3 points in the second half of the last 3 games. That is the worst mark over a 3-game span since 1978, where Virginia Tech didn't score in the second half in 4 straight games. So what
late 70s was a really good era for Virginia Tech football.
Yeah.
Well, 1978 was Bill Dooley's first year as head
that's
coach.
right, it was,
yes. And they went 4-7 that year, and then they went 5-6 the next year, and then Dooley got his stuff in gear, and they went 8-4 in 1980 and went to the Peach Bowl. Now, in going through this stuff on Wikipedia, now remember, this is Wikipedia, it's kind of interesting. If you tap the 1980 Virginia Tech football team link, you get 1980 Virginia Tech Gobblers football team.
I've seen that.
You tap 1981 and you get 1981 Virginia Tech Hokies football team. So a lot of younger people don't know this, and a lot of people don't know this at all, actually. Dooley was not only the football coach, but he was the athletic director. And that was one of the things he wanted to do, was change Virginia Tech from the Gobblers, which he didn't like, to the Hokies. So a little bit of interesting Virginia Tech trivia.
Before Lane Stadium expanded on the west side, it said home of the Fighting Gobblers.
That is correct.
Side too, on the west side.
That's right.
They still have it up.
Yep.
Now the older than I folks, which is really saying something at this point, there used to be a gobbler head on the top of the scoreboard that would gobble, I think, whenever Virginia Tech scored or something.
Right. The
like
scoreboard was in the south end zone. There were like trees, like a little mini woods.
Oh yeah, there were little
outside.
bleachers there,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure Dooley's the one who got rid of the gobblehead thing,
yeah.
and that was not a real popular amongst alumni of the era.
Well, they still played that sound for a while, didn't they?
They play it
I
to
feel like they
fire
play
the
it-
crowd
yeah.
up.
They still play it.
Okay, I was gonna say,
I love it. Yeah.
On third down.
I still remember that sound.
As far as as long as I've been going to games, they've been playing.
Maybe I just didn't know. Yeah, I've tuned it out lately. If they still play it, but that sound is familiar to me.
See, the difference now is it's an MP3 instead of whatever recording they were playing. At
Well,
the
now
time.
what's the other song they play? It's the third down fire up song.
It's not Stick It In.
You're asking me the name of songs.
It's,
I know songs I like, but I don't know the names of them. But anyway,
Gio knew it last year because
Gio,
he said
yeah.
it. I'm like, what is that song?
It's
He's
got
like,
the
you
guitar
know
in
what
it,
it is.
and
Yeah,
it's
it's like
like
turkey
down
and
down.
the something. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, you know what's fallen by the wayside is the whole Darth Vader thing when the defense is out on the field.
that was always great.
Yeah, that was very cool. All right.
What is your favorite third down fire up song?
Well, not the PA announcer going, "It's third down."
The best one that I've heard out there. The best one that I've heard out there was East Carolina, which does the Undertaker gong.
Nice.
Because Vince McMahon went to East Carolina.
Went to East Carolina.
Wisconsin, when I was there, used to play Crazy Train, I think.
That's a good one.
On third down. That was a good one. But the Undertaker gong is just like ominous. And then they come in with like the orchestral music. In the
I could
background. It's like,
definitely
that's
get
really
behind
good.
that. That would be sweet. Yeah.
Does that sound like Hell's Bells from AC/DC?
A little bit, but it's
Yeah.
just like a single.
We'll play it
just
for
like
you when we
gong.
get
Yeah.
back up there. Show you a good Undertaker entrance.
All right. Since 1994, Virginia Tech is 25-6 in their third game of the season. However, they are 3-4 in the last 7 seasons.
Week 3. If Aaron McFarlane is listening out there, he once wrote on the way to East Carolina one time, put together a column about how week 3 doesn't get the respect it deserves. I was marveling at he was doing research. He was going back. It's like week 1, everybody does it. Week 2, you make your most improvement from week 1 to week 2. But week 3, that doesn't get the respect it deserved. I'm like, man, he did it. He went there and he got that thing written. Very impressive. I don't know if maybe it does hold up. It's true. Week 3, very important week for the Hokies coming up.
We can hope that you make your biggest improvements from week 2 to week 3. Certainly didn't do it from week 1 to week 2.
From a journalistic standpoint, I was just like, wow, that's how it's done, folks.
Yep.
That's how you craft a column.
So speaking of Aaron McFarling, let's go down the rabbit hole and fill a little time. What is he famous for, Andy?
Gambling?
Besides that, giving up the home run.
Yes, he gave up home run number 6 to Marshall McDougal for Florida State.
Right.
And Virginia Tech once had a hitter hit 5 home runs in a game. And Aaron McFarland wrote I forget the name of the hitter, but Aaron wrote a column saying, "I'm sorry, so-and-so. I'm the reason you don't have the NCAA record right now."
There you go.
It was great.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Aaron was a pitcher at Maryland, right?
Yeah.
Maryland.
So,
Side armor.
Man, you can look it up. The NCAA record for home runs in a game is 6. And McFarling didn't give up any but the 6th one. He came in and he gave up the last one.
But he challenged him. You know who loved that stat more than anybody? It was Pete Hughes. When he was there, he loved to rib Aaron about that thing. So, and thus concludes a Mac Corner on the podcast.
Yeah.
Gosh, Aaron did not like to tell that story over beers at ACC kickoff. That was not where I first heard it. All right. Since 1980, Virginia Tech is 13-3 when playing on the lucky 13th day of the month. So since 1980, that's 45 years. Virginia Tech has scored. This is an interesting one. Virginia Tech has scored in the first quarter every time they've played ODU. They've outscored ODU 43-10 in the first quarter of the 6 games against ODU. So hopefully, yeah, they'll go out there. Virginia Tech will be winning after 1 quarter, and we'll get lightning and have to clear the stadium and have to call the game later and give it to Virginia Tech. In the first matchup between these two teams, Virginia Tech had 25 more first downs than ODU. The Hokies had 32 first downs and ODU had 7. That's the second biggest difference on record, the other being 26 versus Wake Forest in 2010. 2010. So Virginia Tech had 35 first downs and Wake Forest had 9. I mean, I could look it up, but Chris, do you remember anything about the 2010 Wake Forest game?
Your favorite linebacker. They rushed for.
I was going to say, was it that game?
Yeah, it was. They rushed for had one running back had over 200 yards against Virginia Tech. I forget his name, and Lindell Gibson was not having a great time of it. And
he had a good view of all those rushing yards.
Right. That was a rare year where Virginia Tech's offense was much better than the defense. I think the offense finished top 10 or so in the country, and the defense was only 55th or something like that. But they won the ACC anyway because that was Tyrod's senior year, and they had David Wilson, and it was just. I guess they had David Wilson, and Ryan Williams, and Darren Evans, all of them. My goodness. Insane. And Danny Cole and Jarrett Boykin. That team was loaded on offensively.
Josh Harris.
Yeah.
Josh
241 yards on 20 carries in that game.
And Virginia Tech won that game 52-21. It was never in doubt.
Right.
Man, that's interesting. 200 and some yards rushing, and you only have 9 first downs. All right. In every game versus ODU, Virginia Tech has gained 333 yards or more of total offense. Only one time did ODU break the 333-yard mark.
I think I know which one. What year was that? I think I know which one it was.
Justin Fuente remembers it well.
That was the game where David Cunningham got an unsportsmanlike conduct. It's the best thing that came out of that game. Was the pitcher. There's a pitcher there. So they called it unsportsmanlike conduct on Virginia Tech, and you know how they put the graphic of the penalty at the bottom of the screen, and all of a sudden they put the camera on the sideline and just show David Cunningham while it says unsportsmanlike conduct Virginia Tech on the bottom of the screen. That's the only good thing that came out.
I think we need to get that still and use it.
Absolutely,
the graphics here.
Absolutely.
I think that used to be his Twitter header.
It probably did. Like I know Shelton Moss has it. We'll have to hit up Shelton.
All over his Twitter.
Yeah. Shelton, if you're out there, you need to put that on Twitter. Oh, my gosh. In the last 2 ODU matchups, Virginia Tech has 11 total sacks with 5 forced turnovers, while ODU has only 1 sack with 1 turnover. I don't know why I blanked on the Grant Wells 4 interception game back in 2022. I remember I was in the crowd in that game, and I remember seeing – do you remember how many he had? He had a couple in the first half, I think. And I bumped into Grant Wells' mom, and man, she was sweating it. And I was like, he'll be fine. Turns out no. So anyway, we wrapped that up. That's Stat Time with Scott Glesner, presented by Rich Webb.
All righty. Lots of great stuff there. And so now we're going to talk about the Old Dominion defense and then a couple other key pieces to the game on both sides. And really, the biggest story for this defense for Old Dominion perhaps is a player that's no longer with the team. And it's lately, the big news is star linebacker Jason Henderson has stepped away from the game. And that really is a big loss to the Monarchs.
He ripped almost everything in his knee.
He was listing ligaments that I didn't know existed.
Exactly. That was incredible. I don't know actually how he came back and actually played in the Indiana game from that, but he was such a good player a few years ago. He was one of those guys where I'm like, I really hope he hits the transfer portal because I want that dude as one of Virginia Tech's starting linebackers. A terrific player. Was a first-team preseason All Sun Belt, and he absolutely would have been that if he hadn't blown out his knee. But yeah, he decided to give up football after the Indiana game. Just said he can't do it anymore. And I don't blame him. That's a pretty brutal injury, and that's a tough loss for the ODU defense.
I have to feel like they had a sense this was going to happen. I mean, they played with him without him last year, essentially. And I think the Virginia Tech game was one of those last year where they were still sort of like, can he get there? Can he not get there? So they were still figuring out their defense and who is going to replace him there. I think they have a better idea this year. They played a whole season without him. I think they go into the season knowing there's a chance he's not going to be able to get back. So I would imagine that ODU's on better footing for how to replace him.
Yes and no. Koa Neatala replaced him last year.
Right.
Who went on to have a really good year, and he's a preseason all-second team Sun Belt. Good linebacker. He hasn't played in their first 2 games. I assume due to injury, but, nobody covers ODU football and they don't give media access, so nobody really knows. I just know he was in sweats on the sideline for their first game. So if you go back to the start of last season, they've lost their best linebacker and now their second best linebacker. So I don't know if Neatala is going to play this week or not. When he doesn't play, his brother.
I was going to say they got another Natoa.
Yeah. His brother replaces him, and his brother played some last year too and played well, but it was in 200 snaps as like a rotational piece. So they're a little bit unsettled, I would say.
So a little bit of trivia: the 2 brothers are a year apart. I checked to see if they were twins. They're not. Jason Henderson. Sorry, I went down the Wikipedia rabbit hole again. Henderson is from Dingman's Ferry, Pennsylvania, an unincorporated community of just over 1,000 people.
A lot of your good football players.
That's what I'm here for, man. The jokes and the trivia.
Yep.
So small town making it happen out there. And so you mentioned the need to replace him, but how are they going to, in that linebacking group as well as up front, get pressure against Virginia Tech? How would you assess their ability to do that so far this season?
They kind of run they run a defense that can have multiple fronts. They technically have 3 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers, and 3 linebackers and a nickel. They can always walk up one of those other players and present an even front and things like that. Like most defensives these days, they're fluid. And they are the type of defense that they don't have a dominant pass rusher. I think Chris Trinidad's a good player. I believe he was preseason second team All Sun Belt at defensive end. 6'5", 272 redshirt senior. Had 5 sacks last year. Good player, but not like a dominant pass rusher. But they can create pressure with their alignments and their confusion. And I expect they will try to do that, especially with Virginia Tech's offensive line situation. And it's a hard game to pick because we don't even know which offensive linemen are going to play for Tech. Certainly not all 4 of those injured guys are going to play, but I don't know. Is Johnny Garrett going to miss the game? If he misses the game, that changes a lot because then Remack moves to left tackle, and you've got a new right tackle, and you've got a bunch of youth up there, and they're going to throw looks at the group that they haven't seen. Or have only seen 1 week maybe, like last week, which didn't go well for them. Now, you should get better at stuff like that the more times you face it, but I think ODU, they're not going to go out there and dominate you, with one player defensively, but with the weaknesses of the Virginia Tech offense, schematically, they're going to present a problem.
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt kind of showed in the second half, just bring lots of pressure. This group up front, the O-line has not been able to handle it very well. And obviously, new guys trying to get into new positions, and Drones hasn't handled it very well. So I think if you come after them with a ton of pressure, even if that's not like your thing that you do, there's been success with that this year doing that.
Yeah, and sometimes Brandon Patterson put it in his video article. Vanderbilt at one point showed cover 0, which was anybody, like, it's basically a straight up blitz across the board with everybody playing man. And then at the last second after the ball was snapped, they dropped a couple of their defensive tackles off in a short zone. So it was a zone blitz, and it took away the drones' like short
Man, that is shades of Bud Foster.
It's exactly shades of Bud Foster. So and again, man, those are tough looks for young players. It's one thing to watch it on television and see it, but to see it in real time and have to respond to it is not easy.
And the last group we haven't really touched on is the secondary. But in general, this defense returns a lot of members from last season, but there's also still some youth kind of in that area as well.
Yeah, a couple sophomores at safety. Good cornerback names, though. Zion Frink, Batros Alessandro. Yeah, but 3 of their 4 starters are sophomores. They've also got a redshirt junior at nickel. But, no, outside of their quarterback, like, none of their individual players jump off the page at you. Are you going to be able to handle them schematically, offensively, and are you going to be able to stop their quarterback defensively?
So with that, what does the ideal day for Kyron Drones look like against this defense?
Run. Virginia Tech needs to grab a hold of this game early, and they need to keep Colton Joseph on the sideline. ODU does not have a big defense. They put 3 defensive linemen out there. They don't have a linebacker bigger than 222 pounds. Nobody in their secondary is bigger than 190. Virginia Tech has big backs. Marcellus Hawkins, 5'11", 219. Terrion Stewart is 5'8", he's 220. He's a bowling ball. And then obviously you've got Kyron Drones, who's huge. The easiest thing for a young offensive line to do is run block. It's not as confusing as pass blocking. And so I think you have a mismatch here with player sizes for Virginia Tech. I think you've got to pound on ODU and grind it out, keep Colton Joseph on the sideline, and win the game that way. I think that's the formula for Virginia Tech in general this year, but especially this week.
Well, you look at the success they had last week against Vanderbilt, and it was Drones ran the ball a lot. It was like 10 carries in the first half, something like that, and a lot of designed runs, a lot of read plays that he's doing as well. I think they did a good job, staying ahead of the sticks there, so you're not in 3rd and long. That's not a forte for this offense necessarily. And then you throw off play action and stuff like that. That's the way to do it. You're not going to go out and throw the ball 40 times and win a game if you're Virginia Tech. You're just not built that way. And what's it been, like 114, 115 rushing yards these first couple games? Yeah. They've been in that range. I think you got to bump that number up quite a bit to feel comfortable about the direction of this offense. And I think a little more balance in that sense. Any kind of offense compared to the second half last week. But if you can get the run game going a little bit, I think that opens up things.
So now we've laid out the personnel. I want to take a step back and talk about what's going to be important in this game. Something that stood out with what Brent Price said this week. You mentioned about staying hot in the second half. You mentioned it wasn't necessarily a concern of effort, but pure conditioning. How can the team stay ready to go in the second half?
That's not even. There's no way. I mean, they might have been tired in the fourth quarter, but that was because they couldn't get off the field in the third quarter. In the first half, Virginia Tech had the ball over 19 minutes. It was Vandy who should have been tired coming out in the second half. Instead, Vanderbilt went down the field and scored 2 touchdowns. Tech wasn't tired at that point because they controlled the ball in the first half. They had the ball for 2/3 of the half, and they still got smoked right from the beginning in the second half. The defense might have gotten tired in the fourth quarter, but they were getting whipped before they got tired. It wasn't the other way around. They didn't get tired and then get whipped. They couldn't stop them before they got tired. No excuses there.
Also, did the team quit? No, I don't think so. But if you're demoralized like that and they're just running straight down your throats, I don't think that you necessarily quit, but I do think it enters your mind. And maybe you're not as sharp or just not 100% on every single play like that. So I think there's a shades of gray between the team was focused 100% and they quit, maybe somewhere in the middle there, especially when the results are going the other way. I think that's just human nature in this whole thing. But the way if you're a head coach, you have to say, no, the team didn't quit. But no, maybe the effort wasn't as great as it could have been in the second half.
I've played on a really bad football team that had no confidence in its coaching, and you mentally check out. Absolutely.
Chatham High?
Absolutely. Yep. And
Covered some Chatham High teams.
yeah, you
down
did, and you interviewed the coach in question too one time.
I did.
And
He was one coach that wouldn't give us a depth chart.
he was a trendsetter.
Yeah.
He never gave us a depth chart either.
Well, maybe
That's
why he didn't give us
He
one.
never gave us a playbook.
Well, that's probably
Okay, so all right. So anyway, you'd mentally check out. You get down by a certain number of points, they're like, yeah, we're not going to win. And don't get me wrong, like you're going to keep playing hard, you're going to chase down the ball carrier and everything like that, but you do lose a step, and you're just not as dialed in, and then that's what happened on Saturday night. It's human nature.
I played football for 5 years, and the first team I played on went 0-6-1, and the last team I played on went 0-10. And yeah, you get stuck in that, and it's kind of hard to explain. If you've played the game and been on a team like that, you know what it's like.
Now, Brent Pry also made a list of a lot of things that he saw in last week's game that he wants to change moving forward. But if you're Virginia Tech, what's the number one thing on the list they need to shift from last week to this week?
Where are we? The number one thing? Are you sure I can only pick one? They need to get back to playing defense like they did against South Carolina. They forced a couple turnovers against Vanderbilt in the first half, but you didn't really feel like they had their hands around the game even then. I thought they were going to win at halftime because I thought they would make adjustments and actually play a little bit better in the second half defensively, but that didn't happen. They need to get back somehow and play defensively how they did against South Carolina. This offense has a ceiling, of course, and it's not a very high ceiling. So they're only going to improve so much. I think they can improve how they attack opponents based on their own personnel, their own strengths and weaknesses. I think they can improve on that. But like I said, they're limited on that side of the ball. So the defense has got to be strong. They've got to be a lot stronger than they were last week. They got to get back to South Carolina level.
Yeah, I think D-line specifically. I think that's the group that has the most potential on the defense. And they didn't play spectacularly against Vanderbilt. They did against South Carolina, and that was a big reason why they stayed in that game. I think they need to lean on that group. It's perhaps unfair to say, of all the things that went wrong against Vanderbilt, like the one group that played well in the opener, the defensive line, like get your act together, defensive line. But, that's the burden of being the strength of the defense, I think, is you expect great things out of that group. And I think of all the spots, that's the group that has the most potential to make, inflict some real damage on this OD offense. So that group's got to play better this week.
So a game to pay attention to this weekend is, of course, Vanderbilt at South Carolina.
Which is on the SEC network. It should be on a bigger network, man.
It's a good game.
Vanderbilt
Think
don't
of
get
the
no
SEC
respect,
matchups
man.
that are out there, though.
That's
that
true.
They would probably rather broadcast.
Because, everybody felt good about the Virginia Tech defense after that first game, but South Carolina only had about 250 yards of offense against South Carolina State, I think is who they played last weekend.
I don't think the interior of the South Carolina offensive line is good. I also don't think they made the right offensive coordinator hire. They hired a guy who's never been a coordinator in college. He's been an NFL coach his whole career.
Mike Shula.
He's kind of treating his quarterback, who's only a sophomore and who's really not an advanced passer yet, he's treating him like an NFL quarterback, which he's not. Well, he's a future NFL quarterback, but he can't do most of the things an NFL quarterback can do right now.
Yeah,
but Shula's trying to kind of force that in there, I think.
I mean, I know the transitive property of football isn't a thing, even though people do play that game, but pay attention to that one. And it might say something about the success that Virginia Tech had early in the season against South Carolina. Could be that South Carolina is just not good.
If you watch the two games that Virginia Tech played, you go, who's the top 10 team here and should be favored by 7 in this game? I don't think you'd say South Carolina right now. I mean, Vanderbilt, first of all, it's a shocker that Vanderbilt's not ranked right now.
Yeah.
I think they should be ranked, and perhaps South Carolina not in the top 10 where they are right now. I think those two teams are closer than they actually are in the rankings.
So let's get to the big question for this week, which is who is going to win this football game? Chris, who do you have in this one?
Chris,
first of all, Nick,
here's the crystal ball over here. He knows everything.
Wait.
Did you have a picture that you wanted to show us? There it is. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Is David 12 years old in that picture?
Young David.
He was a sophomore in that picture. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's just
look,
amazing.
it's 28-all. Virginia Tech still has a chance.
Yeah. I can't believe that picture's never been
If not
shared
for
before.
David's penalty, they might have won that
They
game.
might have won that game. Undisciplined. All right.
Who do you think got that unsportsmanlike conduct?
That's a great
yeah,
question. We'll have to go back and look at the box score. But
Money's on Trayvon Hill.
Yes. Yeah. So
Good guess. All right, so prediction time, I guess.
I've got the preview pulled up here in case you don't remember what you picked.
Yeah, I remember what I picked. I think Virginia Tech's going to win. Here's the thing. I picked them to win 27-17. That's my score prediction. Considering I don't know which offensive linemen are going to play and which aren't, I'm not sure I see them getting to 27 points. But at the same time, I don't see them winning a one-score game either, because I said I'm not going to pick them to win a one-score game until they actually do it. So I'm picking them to win by 10.
27-17.
27-17. I can certainly see the other outcome as well. I think Virginia Tech is a mentally fragile group right now. If ODU comes out and it's a good game at halftime and ODU blitzes them, or like if he breaks off a 75-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game like he did against Indiana, I don't know if this team can mentally take that after they just gave up 5 straight touchdowns in the last game. So I think you have to get off to a good start. If you don't, then my prediction could easily be reversed. I'm under a lot of pressure and stress right now because I've picked 14 in a row.
That is correct.
The burden of all this success.
I know, it is.
Not so subtle flex there by Chris. All right, I picked Virginia Tech 24, ODU 16. That's technically a one-score game, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, for me, you can sit here and analyze the matchups and all that stuff, but I just can't pick ODU to win in Lane Stadium. Of course, I couldn't pick Vanderbilt to win last week either, and I should have, but so we'll see what happens, guys.
Yeah, I said Tech 23-20, which I know is a one-score game, but the start is a 10-point line, then down to 7.5 and 7. I even saw 6.5.
Is it 6.5
somewhere
now?
today? Wow. It's moving the wrong direction to feel good about being confident in Virginia Tech at home, and I just wonder about this offensive line. If that group is playing 3 backups again, how much success are they going to have, even against a defense like ODU that I don't think is great, but if you don't have that operation going well, it could be a struggle. So this ties into a buy or sell thing in the future. I think Tech might have to kick a lot of field goals. So 23-20 is my pick.
Some other scores, first from our unsportsmanlike conduct man himself. David has Virginia Tech winning 30-24.
Oh, 30. He's breaking the magic 30-point
Oh, that's
barrier.
nothing. Wait till you hear what Nick's got.
Yeah, exactly. Nick, behind the scenes, has Virginia Tech 31-17.
31
How
whole
about that?
points. Nick,
That's like 4 touchdowns and a field goal.
Nick, did you learn your lesson last week?
Remember, Nick picked Virginia Tech to beat Vanderbilt 27-10, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, did happen as well. But those are some of the predictions for this week and what's going to happen between Virginia Tech and Old Dominion. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We've had a lot of content previewing this matchup, as well as tomorrow there'll be Q&A. And you can also, if you want to take a trip down memory lane, recap the Vanderbilt game as well, is up on YouTube also. So thank you so much for watching episode 436 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share the video if you haven't already for what's going to be coming up at techsideline.com. What do we have?
You're doing a Q&A or a mailbag this week?
Mailbag today. Eventually. I got some other stuff I got to take care of first today.
Any questions about the coach and AD in that mailbag?
Yeah, a few.
Yeah.
When I put the solicitation on the message board, I'm like, release the hounds, have at it, folks. And a lot of the similar questions, like what's going to happen? I don't know exactly, but it could get ugly here if the season continues to go south.
Yeah, and I got my normal Friday Q&A.
And I know this is looking backwards when you're trying to look forward, but apparently the David Teal interview yesterday is really good.
It was really
yeah, but
good.
it's up there right now on YouTube.
Can you tell I haven't listened to it yet?
Yeah.
So imagine that somebody who's in 5 halls of fame would be a good interview. So
Imagine that.
podcast.
Shocker.
Yeah, so that's a really good one if you haven't already checked it out. So make sure to watch that, and that is upcoming on techsideline.com. So still a ton of content going on this season for Tech Sideline. Well, for Chris Coleman, Will Stewart, Andy Vitter, and Nick Brown behind the scenes, I'm Riley Klaus saying so long for now.